The new Warrior Cats book is going to be coming out this Tuesday, and suddenly there's tons and tons of interest in a pretty minor background character, so I figured I'd run to put something out beforehand. That said, this minor background character has always been silently popular. She's been around since The Power of Three, where she shows up as a queen, and has quite the collection of kits, but nothing on ShadowClan's Snowbird. And she trained in the Dark Forest in Omen of the Stars, despite being a mother to one of the trainees. And before this arc, if you asked people who should the next leader of RiverClan be, usually if it wasn't Reed Whisker, obviously, she would come up. That said, thanks to Wings of Fire, I'm sure fans of her go through hell trying to find any fan art at all. And this might make you go, oh, Icewing? She sounds interesting. Why haven't I heard of this character? And it's because she almost never does anything, or at least not until very, very recently. Here's a few basic facts about Icewing. She's a RiverClan cat. We don't know where she came from, who her parents are, or who her mentor was, and she's currently the mentor to Frostpaw's sister, Mistpaw. She had 2 litters. The first was a litter of 4 in Power of 3, and the second was another litter of 2 in Vision of Shadows. Her mate is never mentioned inside the books. All evidence we have of her mate being a specific cat comes from Kate Carey's blog clan, but this information was either purposefully removed or never included in the allegiances for the actual published copies of Warrior Cats. While she is in the allegiances for every book, she's barely in Omen of the Stars and Power of 3. We see her super briefly in early Power of 3 helping Mothwing, and then like 8 books go by before we see her again in the Dark Forest, where Ivypool thinks she looks nice and questions what she's doing there. She also shows up in Misty Star's Omen, just being on patrols. They do mention in this book that she's quote-unquote more lightly built and better at traversing mud than Misty Star. But we get a glimpse of her personality in the very last book of Omen of the Stars, where she's seen by Dovewing while spying on the Dark Forest. She's seen briefly with her son Beetle Whisker, but is nowhere in sight when later he's killed by Broken Star. She's also not mentioned to be his mother, and instead just referred to as a clanmate here. But later, she's seen trying to control the clan cats, seemingly to prevent them from getting caught. The Dark Forest warriors' cheers rang in Dovewing's ears. With a gasp, she spotted Sunstrike of WindClan and Minnowtail from RiverClan. They were staring at Tiger Star, their eyes wide with shock. Not far away from them, Mouse Whisker was backing towards the trees. "The clans have been flawed for too long." Hollowflight stretched up among the Dark Forest warriors. The RiverClan Tom's eyes shone. "We have to show them that only the strongest will survive." Dovewing felt sick. How can a clan cat believe in such cruelty? Icewing's white pelt flashed at the corner of her vision. The RiverClan she-cat nudged Mouse Whisker back towards Blossomfall and Birchfall. With a flick of her tail, she beckoned Firstpelt and Hairspring of WindClan closer. "Don't let Tiger Star see you're afraid," she hissed. "Keep quiet and do exactly what he says, or you'll never see your home again." Birchfall started to object, but a ragged tortoiseshell turned to face him, eyes narrow. "I don't hear you cheering for our leader," she growled. Icewing met her gaze. "We're planning our strategy, Mapleshade," she meowed. "Don't forget we have the edge when it comes to fighting the clans. Our clanmates trust us." "Really?" Mapleshade sounded unconvinced. "Let's hope you're prepared for the battle of your lives." She leaned closer to Icewing. "Because fighting alongside us is the only way you'll survive." It's hard to tell where Icewing's loyalty lies in this scene, but regardless of if or not she believes in the ideals of the Dark Forest, she's trying to protect the younger trainees from the negative attention of their superiors. We could read this as her trying to prevent any more clan cats being killed like her son, but the book didn't seem to remember he was her son, and we don't get her reaction to his death in this arc. So if we choose to do that, we choose to do that retroactively, really. She's mentioned and brought along by Misty Star in Dovewing's Silence, where Misty Star says, "As you know, Beetle Whisker and Hollowflight were killed in the battle, so they cannot answer for anything they've done. Icewing knows her loyalty was tested by the Dark Forest, and that she failed. But she has learned from this, and I do not doubt her now. She has always been a good warrior. I would like to give her the chance to be one again." She's around, but doesn't do much of anything important in Arc 6. Then, in Arc 7, she's shown to be one of the cats involved in the rebel group resisting Bramblestar, alongside another White River Clan cat, Hairlight. They're not related. Dappletuft is there too, and is related to Hairlight, but she dies in the battle. Hairlight, Icewing, and Mothwing are all kicked out of RiverClan for this, and the 3 of them are taken in by ShadowClan. In Darkness Within, Icewing is pretty prickly about being kicked out of RiverClan and chooses not to talk to the RiverClan warriors at the vigil for the cats who passed during the battle. She also has trouble adjusting to not eating fish and needs to eat herbs for her upset stomach. Later, she also needs a prey bone removed from her teeth by Shadowsight. While in the medicine den for the bone, she has a conversation with Shadowsight about her dead son, Beetlewhisker. At this point, she has several dead children, not just Beetlewhisker, but also Petalfur, who died in Shattered Sky, Grasspelt, who drowned in Bramblestar's Storm, and not counting a kitten who goes missing before we even meet them in the books. Only the kits from her second litter, Breezeheart and Nightsky, are still alive. Shadowsight nodded, waiting for Icewing to head out, but she lingered. "Is there something else?" he asked. Icewing stared at him for a moment, then looked awkwardly at the ground. "There are rumors," she said, "that at the moon pool last night you volunteered to go to the dark forest to search for Squirrelflight." Shadowsight flicked his whiskers, feeling strangely embarrassed. "I did," he admitted. Icewing met his eye. "You're very brave, but the dark forest is a dangerous place. Did you know that my son, Beetlewhisker, was killed there?" "No," Shadowsight gasped. He had heard stories of the great battle, but he had never put together that Icewing's son was among the casualties. I'm so—" "You don't need to say you're sorry," Icewing interrupted, tilting her head to one side. "I just want to make sure you understand what the risks are. Broken Star left my son in the dark forest to rot. If you die in the dark forest, you die in real life. Your loved ones will never see you again. Do you comprehend that?" Shadowsight didn't know what to say. He knew it was a huge risk, but someone had to stop Ashfur and set this right. "I know some cats in ShadowClan don't trust you, but I believe you are a good cat, Shadowsight," Icewing added with a tip of her head. "Don't make Tigerstar and Dovewing suffer as I have. Thank you for your help." With those words, she was gone, leaving Shadowsight staring after her with a head full of questions. This is pretty much the most substantial bit of anything we see of her until the newest book. Off-screen in A Light in the Mist, her and Hairlight are welcomed back into RiverClan with Mothwing. She shows up in River, only to say a single sentence, and then we get more out of her in Sky. Splashtail in Chapter 3 says about her, "Icewing leads patrols better than any cat in camp," which is good to know. More importantly, though, when Tigerstar takes control of RiverClan, she speaks up in his defense alongside Hairlight and tells the cats, especially Mothwing, that they should trust him. That said, she fights alongside her clanmates when they try to chase the ShadowClan warriors out of their camp. But the reason she's relevant enough to talk about is because of the new preview, for the book that comes out in just a few days. And I understand that soon after I make this video, it's not going to be relevant anymore, as I do not yet know what kind of Icewing content we are going to be seeing in the new book, but I figured I should try and talk about her now so that people reading the book where she might, emphasis on might, be relevant, know who she is. Especially with her being just such a wildly popular character who has done so little. And by wildly popular, I mean wildly popular within communities that actually still read the books. She absolutely is not wildly popular in the art and animation side of this community. In the preview for Warrior Cat Shadow that was published by the website recently, Icewing is more relevant than she is in any other Warrior Cats book. There's only 3 chapters, but she has more attention in those 3 chapters than she does in all of her other appearances combined. Icewing is portrayed as a voice of reason while RiverClan recovers from being beaten by the ShadowClan warriors, convincing her clanmates to stop fighting alongside Hairlight when they continue to argue, and Tigerstar gives Icewing partial leader's duties alongside his deputy Cloverfoot when he leaves. She's immediately criticized as she spent time living in ShadowClan, and the RiverClan cats argue that Splashtail, a 1.5-year-old man, should rule instead, as he was chosen deputy. Tigerstar refuses him, insisting that Icewing is an experienced warrior. He is correct. Splashtail is a baby. Frostpaw's chapter then ends with Icewing telling her that they need to talk later. It's implied earlier in the chapter that she wanted to speak with her before being appointed co-leader. In Nightheart's preview chapter, Icewing is seen comforting a nervous Owlnose. Then later, she delivers a statement to the assembled clan cats, which is not well received. "I admit things have been difficult in RiverClan," she meowed in a measured tone. She was clearly trying to calm the anger among the assembled cats. "Tigerstar's arrival in our camp wasn't welcome, as you will all understand, and no RiverClan cat wants to be controlled by him. However, we have to admit that we have all been more comfortable and better fed since the ShadowClan cats took over the running of our clan." Immediately, her loyalty is called into question a second time, and she continues on to explain how and why the RiverClan cats lied to them at the past few gatherings. Squirrelflight tries to send Alderheart off to Squirrelflight tries to send Alderheart off to RiverClan to help them with their StarClan connection problems, but Tigerstar stops her and insists that Shadowsight and Puddleshine can handle it. Icewing agrees. And while this isn't a whole bunch, it's enough to predict that Icewing is going to be important going forward in this book, even though she was largely silent in the first 2 entries. She seems very trusting of Tigerstar when others in RiverClan aren't, as he took her in after Misty Star exiled her in the Broken Code, and both her clanmates and cats from other clans seem to distrust her for this reason. I personally think it's an interesting setup. I want to see how she interacts with Cloverfoot and Frostpaw. This whole situation basically guarantees that she won't be the real RiverClan leader, but it's nice to see a fan-favorite background cat get the spotlight. I'm glad Tigerstar picked Icewing because it makes sense. It's a logical, genuine thing for warrior cats to do, and it's using a character believable for the position. It's the kind of decision that almost makes it feel like someone is caring about these characters a little. So yeah, Icewing. She does nothing, but she's about to be relevant. Oh, and before I go, a quick word on Mintfur. Mintfur is a cat Kate Carey says is Icewing's mate. Funnily, he vanishes in between the end of A Vision of Shadows and Squirrelflight's Hope, and I think this is especially funny because there's a second, completely separate Mintfur who shows up in SkyClan when SkyClan comes back, and for about 2 books they overlap in the allegiances. It's like they looked it over when composing the Broken Code, noticed there were 2 Mintfurs and deleted one thinking it was an error. I mean, ideally, it's the funniest way for the guy to go out.